And the most popular question this week comes from Shitos or Shetus. Um, that name sounds familiar. I feel like we talked about it last time. I don't know. This question was from more recently, and it was, what's the best approach for making content for beginners? I've been considering creating content to help learners immerse themselves in my native language. However, the most daunting aspect has been making suitable content for beginners. I have a rough idea of what might work, write short stories using basic vocabulary, some visuals, but the problem lies in how much to simplify grammar and odd sounding sentence, or how much to simplify grammar, vocab. Do I make kind of odd sounding sentences, all that sort of stuff? And then how do I prioritize the entertainment aspect of it so that people don't find it incredibly dull? And this is a question that I've specifically been thinking about a lot. I think you think about it a lot less. But do you want to have any thoughts just right off the top of your head, and then I'll take it from there?
No, Ben has been begging me to let him spend working hours making beginner content for English and other languages.
Not working hours.
Okay. Either way.
It's off the clock.
Inside, outside, whatever it is. Because he has very strong opinions about this. And what we found is with our course, we collected a whole bunch of comprehensible input and simplified input for the learners, but there's really not that much of it. And things that are labeled as comprehensible input are often not, which has been a really disheartening for most of the languages. And so I'll turn it over to Ben because he has very strong opinions about this.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I would recommend, and that I've been doing myself, is to minimize the time that you spend not like actually producing language. And so that's anything that's like posting videos, editing things, anything that's not literally making that content live, if that makes any sense. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to make a 10-minute video, try to only spend 15 total minutes of your time doing that thing, because with content, you need a lot of it, right? A lot of these CI channels make 10 minutes per week, and that's going to take freaking forever to get to a point where somebody can actually use that content to make noticeable progress in the language. The Czech channel that I use, which was very good, only had like 15 hours, 20 hours of content that I could use, and I blew through that in like a month, using it 5 times. And so finding a balance between good content and really low effort is really important if you actually want to go far with it. I've seen so many channels that end up with like 5 or 6 videos because they're just spending so much time to make one short video that it's not worth it. And so a lot of improv skills and being comfortable with sort of doing things live but recorded is important for just a general ability and focusing on that efficiency aspect. I also highly recommend that you start not with beginner content, but with advanced or intermediate content, and then work backwards, because beginner content is the hardest content to make, especially super beginner content, because like you said, how it's weird. Like, you have to figure out how to use your language naturally, but also easily, and have enough visuals. And so start with the things that are easy for you to do, just to get in the habit of it and make it a process, and then start going backwards from there. I've got a bunch more tips, but I think those are the 2 most important things. Actually, there is one more. When you try to set up how you're going to do it, don't think that you need to necessarily draw things. A lot of people spend way too much time trying to draw pretty bad pictures on a whiteboard that is not very interesting. So using images or AI generated images are great and free now. Anything that's visual on your computer or on a tablet or something is usually a lot easier to use than trying to actually draw, even if that's sort of the OG method. If you're a good artist, go ahead, but it's a different skill to learn that you don't necessarily want to need to practice. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I'll leave it there, but
My thought on this is, first you should decide what type of content you want to create, whether it's comprehensible input or simplified input, and the difference between that is comprehensible provides additional context, whether that's images or additional explanation or acting that provides context for the language, so that the viewer can actually intuit or guess what the words mean. Whereas simplified content is just you are speaking slowly and simply. Simplified is easier than
Much easier.
comprehensible, because comprehensible you have to like decide what context you want to add. But I think a pretty easy hybrid that Ben just mentioned is just throwing images, like uh, either AI generated or open source
AI.
images, whatever.
You said the Spanish
Um,
order.
did I?
You said I.
Okay. The if you just do the simplified input method where you are talking about a topic and then you go back through and watch it and decide, I am going to just put images throughout the entire video to add additional context. That's sort of an easy hack to produce comprehensible input without a huge amount of effort.
Hmm. Or if you have like comic books and you can put those up on the screen, that can be a great thing to talk about because that already has a story built in.
Mhm.
And that's actually what I've been doing with English. I've been making videos on comics, and it's been a lot easier because I can kind of just tell the story, act it out, talk about words, draw things. And so I definitely recommend finding something like that to go off of. But if you're going for even more beginner, then yeah, something as basic as just a slideshow with images will be great.
Along the same lines, one of my favorite genres on YouTube are video or movie and TV summaries.
Mm-hmm.
So someone just summarizes a movie in 10 minutes and all of the clips in it are from the movie and they're in order. So it's like, it's pretty straightforward to do that. And it seems to be legal because there are literally hundreds of channels doing this, and they're using the actual footage. I just watched one from Farid Diek, and he does a lot of movies, but he did a 3-part series on the Kung Fu Panda series and talked about like the philosophy in Kung Fu Panda, and
It's kind of fun.
he's like very into philosophy and psychology, and so I found it very entertaining. You could do that same thing, but just simplify the language or speak slowly.
And I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure there's a very strong case for fair use if you basically were just to go through a movie and explain like all the scenes, all the slang, all the words. Because, and the biggest thing is that you're not taking, like, no native is going to watch your video about that instead of the movie. And that's one of the biggest things about copyright.
Yeah, educational purposes has a pretty substantial leeway in copyright law.